meeting inviteல topic
Yes.
பாத்தீங்களா இல்லையா?
Yes.
It was mentioned as ESG. Is it social governance or different?
Okay, so it's the same, environmental social governance. But can anyone say like when it had started?
Maybe 10-15 years back, because when our kids started learning, they introduced this subject. In our time, it was only history. Now they introduced as new subject in schools.
Okay, so it actually, the term is new, but not the ideology. Okay, that's something which I also, when I was exploring for this, I got to know. Okay, so it actually started with the period after the Industrial Revolution, which is the 1950s, after the world wars are done. So when the big companies were exploiting the laborers, so that's where the social responsibility concern started in 1950s. After the Industrial Revolution period is over, so people want to have good working conditions, the 8 hours or 9 hours per day work. So US and Europe, they started enacting a lot of labor laws during this period. And then on governance, it started from 1970s, because before that, like there was not much ethical practice followed by many companies. So that's again became a concern, and then 1970s, that was something people started realizing, and they were insisting on creating laws around this. And in 1990s is where UN appointed a council for environmental safeguard, and then that's when the environment related concern started among the developed countries, and they started saying that the carbon emission gases and the ozone depletion, all those started to be a talk from 1990s. And that's when in 2000 UN actually introduced the term ESG. In one of their UN council meeting, they termed this word environmental social governance. Again, it was like just introduced, not much happening around it. And in 2010s, they started creating frameworks to report the ESG compliance of the companies. And current, it's become part of mainstream business and investments. So this is actually, you can see the history, like 50s to 80s, what happened, 90s. Then in 2000s is first, there was a report, Who Cares Wins. On that report only, the term ESG was first introduced by UN. So it's not something new. It's been there, and now when you say 2000s, there itself, it's been like 20 years plus. This term has been there, but today it's more relevant and it's more been given more importance. We will see why and all those. So what is ESG? Environmental social governance, right? So in environmental, can you say what all is covered under the environmental aspects? Like what are the key things?
All natural resources.
Then
weather, maybe weather.
Sorry,
The weather.
Weather.
Climate.
Okay. So from a business point of view, from an organization or a company, what all they should be more careful about, or what all the parameters around the company's activities are considered as environmental? Okay. So there are five major points are there. One is actually the emissions. So how much the company is emitting the carbon waste. So these will be like the greenhouse gas emissions is one of the, it's a gas emission that the company produces. And then the air and water pollution that the company creates, and what are the initiatives they take to reduce it. And then the waste, the solid waste and other waste, even the e-cycling, e-waste. So how the company is managing and what are the practices they are adapting to recycle them. So these parameters actually forms part of the emissions where the company's environmental score will be done. And the next one is the resource use. So what kind of resource we use, like how renewable energy is being used, how much energy is consumed, the water usage and what are the efforts taken to conserve water usage within the company, and what are the sustainable materials that's been used and how it is sourced. So then the next one is the climate change, like how the company is adapting to the climate changes and what are the strategies you take. And biodiversity conservation and habitat protection means like what you do to stop this climate change as a company, what are the initiatives you are taking, and again the environmental compliance and regulatory violation. So you see these, there are the 5 pillars, like the greenhouse gas emissions, the energy use, waste management, water management, and the resource use for the green products and biodiversity. So these are the aspects under which the environmental score is being done for the companies. So the next is social. So what does this social refers to? Any idea?
It's us, we and our family and workers, all around us.
All around us.
More like CSR activities.
Not exactly. That's where actually the ESG differs from CSR and SDG also. Okay, there is something called Sustainability Development Goals. There are 16 goals, but those also like more of environmental and sustainability goals. But CSR is the social responsibility for the companies, the corporate social responsibility. But here in ESG, when they say social, like Sitaraman said, it's more on the labor practices. That is the main one. Like what is the working conditions given to the employees health and safety, whether the wages are fair, and how diverse and inclusion from different segments of people, and then the employee training and development program. So how the company is doing good on all these or bad on all these labor practices. And then the human rights. So here again the supply chain, not only my labor but also the supply chain that I adopt, how the labor practices are there, and the anti-discrimination, like there is no bias or the racism should not be there, and those forms under the human rights. And then the community relations. This is where what you do to the external community, the typical CSR activities, like how you engage with local communities and what are the programs that you do as a company to create an impact in the society that you are. So that is the community relations. So these 3 majorly forms the social aspects, how it is evaluated. Why do business fail? Can someone say? You would have seen many businesses failing, going bankrupt, collapsing. Can you say what would be the reason?
Again, is this from a company's view or
company's view? You would have read the news. You would have encountered many companies getting failed, closing down, going bankrupt, shares falling down from like 3-digit numbers to single-digit number.
Okay, then again we will refer to your video yesterday. Okay, so first you have to take care of your employees, then they will bring the business. Obviously, for any business, they have to get the business from to run the day-to-day business. If they don't get it, or in other words, they have to make profit. So that is the bottom line. If they don't make profit, they cannot run it.
Okay, so in simple ways, the ESG, depending on the sector you are, when you are bad in one of these, that will collapse your empire. Okay, that's as simple as that. So these 3 are the core pillars for the organization. So I'll show you some examples.
I will differ a little.
We'll see. I'll show you some example. Is this company not doing good?
They were doing good, but because of the environmental.
Okay, so not getting business, not making sales is a different thing. Okay, so you are doing good. You are a good company making profits. You are in your shares are highly valued. All that is there. But when you are not good in these 3, even if you are in a peak of your turnover, you will collapse. So I have many examples for that. So this is one company where their environmental practices led to their collapse. So they had to shut down because of their environmental practices is not in line with the industry they are. Okay. So then this is a US company. It like collapsed in 2000s. again, they were not good in social aspects, including some tax issues and all that. So they were like 2000 plus employees company doing good during the Y2K that era, and then they collapsed suddenly because of their social practices are not been proper. And for governance, I have like many examples, but I thought the latest one, this could be a apt example here. How this company was valued and how they were like doing, we all know, but where they are today, it's purely because of the board, the management was not doing ethical practices, and they are not properly following any regulatory aspects that they have to do. So it's the governance, the failure in governance led to the collapse of this company. In general, there are more than 1,000 data points that are being evaluated or that has been checked to arrive at a score. Okay? And there is no fixed points like these are the data points that you need to check. So how the companies are doing these, the companies, the consulting firms who are doing the ESG scores are actually taking the publicly available data for these data points. And also, if I as a company, I want to get my ESG score done, I could approach them. So they take the publicly available data and also get few data from me, the consented data. So with all these, they arrive at the score. And minimum, all these companies, they use at least some 600 data points to arrive at the ESG score. So, and these points, the data points that they consider, it differs based on the company which is doing this scoring. So these are the companies, the top companies that are doing the ESG score and providing it to the organizations. Like some, they do on their own also without even a company asking for a ESG score. They do it from the publicly available data and then they publish also. And some, when the company wants to have their ESG score done, so that gives a value for them among the investors and their business to their suppliers and their buyers. So they do it, they go approach these companies and get it done. So CRISIL is one of the, we know, like they do all these credit ratings and everything. So they are one of the companies who does this ESG. The Dun & Bradstreet does this, Iris, SGS, Bloomberg, Definitive. All these companies do this and they all have different way of doing it.
But SGS is more into inspection and Bloomberg is more into monetary or like treasury operations.
Right? Yeah, but they also do this ESG score. So if you go to their websites and you want to get your ESG score done, they do that. Typically, it differs from each sector. Okay, so each the weightage for this E, S, and G, it differs industry-wise. Okay, this is a very high level, a common categorization or the weightage that the environment is typically 35, the social is 25, and the governance is 40%. This again, all these I've taken from CRISIL. So what we will be seeing is CRISIL's way of how they are doing. But the industry specific, the weightage actually varies. So this chart will show you 3 different industries: banks, electric utilities, and pharmaceuticals. So if you see banks, the environmental criteria is very low because bank is not creating any environmental pollution compared to a manufacturing company like who is into copper or electric utilities manufacturing. Okay, so that's why if you see the environmental criteria is 13 for banks, electric utilities it's 28 the weightage, and pharmaceuticals it's 9 because they already have like doing so many things around that. And the social, if you see, bank is 32, the electric utilities is 28, the pharmaceuticals is 41 because there the workplace, the health and safety, so many things are very important compared to other the electric utilities. And the governance, if you see the bank, the weightage for governance is very high because that's where the bank has to be very strong.
Really, the Indian banks, they are doing ESG? I don't think so, because the bank where I worked, in particular the social criteria, it differs a lot.
So electric utilities, it's 44 is the governance, and for pharmaceuticals, it's 50. And within that, if you see here, each one of the categories that they define, they say like what would be the weightage for that particular category within the environmental, social, and governance. So if you see the corporate governance is very high for the banks, like 10, and the risk and crisis management, again, it's high for the bank, it's 6. For bank, ICICI Bank is having a score of 39. So if you see their environmental score is 22, social is 36, and governance is 47. Because the governance having a higher weightage, though they have 47, that's why they get to 39 because of all the three combined factors. And within this, if you see, you can see in detail, okay? So how good they are in each aspect. So in human capital development, they are like close to 50. Financial inclusion, they are like close to 100 because this point is 100. So they are like somewhere around 75 plus. Corporate governance, they are actually very low, like only 50. Business ethics also, it's around 50. So these are the key aspects on which this ESG score for this ICICI Bank has been done by CRISIL. That's all. So these are the places I took assistance to prepare this session.